and our players across the league are too often the targets. This is not something any player in this league should have to tolerate.
Do you think Caitlin's being used as a pawn? Caitlin didn't bring racism to the WNBA. This has been happening. And that, I think, is what's been such a shock for all of us.
If you think the drama in the WNBA is just about basketball, you haven't been paying close enough attention. Because right now, the league is engulfed in a firestorm that has very little to do with what happens between the whistles, and everything to do with the ugliest of off-court battles. It's a story about race, jealousy, media manipulation, and a generational rookie who walked straight into a war she never asked for. And at the center of it all isn't just Caitlin Clark. It's a legendary voice who decided she'd had enough, and an entire franchise now on the verge of being torn down and rebuilt from the ground up. This is the explosive truth behind the season that changed everything, and the shocking decisions that are about to redefine the future of the Indiana Fever. Stick with me, because by the end of this, you'll understand why nothing will ever be the same.
There is one thing I want to reset, that we want to reset, and it's the language being used around fans. Fever fans, Caitlin fans, new fans. That actually has to go.
Before we get into the messy heart of this, make sure you're subscribed and have those notifications on. The twists in this story are far from over, and you won't want to miss what comes next. It all started with a whisper that became a roar. Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA with a level of hype the league had rarely seen, carrying the momentum of a record-shattering collegiate career that transcended sports. From selling out opposing arenas on the road at Iowa to shattering NCAA scoring records, the anticipation was a tangible force. Record-breaking jersey sales, sold-out arenas bearing her name on the marquee, a spotlight so bright it threatened to blind everyone else and reshape the financial landscape of the entire league. And almost immediately, a narrative began to take hold in the darker corners of the internet, fueled by a segment of new fans unfamiliar with the league's existing culture.
Did you, when you went and kind of swatted at Caitlin, did you intend to hit her in the eye? And if so, could you just, or if not, either way, could you talk about what happened on that play?
I don't even know why I would intend to hit anybody in the eye. That doesn't even make sense to me. But no, I didn't. I didn't know I hit her, actually. I was trying to make a play on the ball, and I guess I followed through and I hit her. So obviously it's never intentional. That's not even like the type of player that I am. So yeah.
Did you and Marina kind of laugh about it afterwards? It looked like there was later on in the game they caught you guys laughing about it.
No, I just told you I didn't even know I hit her. So I can't laugh about something I didn't know happened.
The idea was simple, and it spread like wildfire. The veteran players in the league were petty. They were jealous of her spotlight, her endorsements, and her mainstream appeal. They looked at this white girl from Iowa stealing all the attention, and they hated her for it, resenting her for the opportunities they felt had been denied them for years. This wasn't about basketball rivalry. This was framed as a personal, bitter resentment, a collective cold shoulder from women who had fought for scraps of coverage for decades. The catalyst? A few offhand comments in press conferences, a few seemingly side-eyed looks caught on camera during handshake lines, with one from a legend like Diana Taurasi given monumental weight, and dissected for hidden meaning. That was all it took. The story was written by algorithms and outrage clicks.
Honestly, hearing it initially, my visceral reaction was like, that's not good. That doesn't feel good. That feels racist, to be honest.
The WNBA's old guard was freezing out the new star, threatened by her mere presence. But a narrative that's simple never stays simple for long, because it fails to account for the complex history and competitive fire that defines a professional game. As the season tipped off, and Caitlin Clark faced the expected, brutal physicality of professional game, the hard fouls, the full court pressure, the blocked shots that every rookie experiences, that jealousy story mutated in real time. It evolved into something more sinister and assumptive. The idea that Clark wasn't just playing against opponents. She was being systematically targeted in a coordinated campaign of violence.
Led to the Twitter trolls and bots taking over. And what started there was this narrative of petty, jealous players hating on Caitlin. That's really what happened. That's where it started, that we must just dislike her, that we look at her side-eyed, that we don't want her to come in the WNBA and be successful, that we're hating on her, right? So
every hard foul was replayed endlessly, not as a competitive play, but as evidence of vendetta, a deliberate attempt to intimidate or injure. The moment that exploded this theory into the mainstream came in a highly publicized game against the Chicago Sky. Shundi Carter's blatant off-the-ball shoulder check on Clark, a play Clark herself later called not a basketball play, was the perfect fuel for this narrative engine. Social media erupted with condemnation and conspiracy. See? They said, they're not just playing hard. They're trying to hurt her, to run her out of the league before she can change it. This single moment became the undeniable proof for a large audience that the jealousy had turned physically dangerous.
Any point did I think anybody was playing dirty against Caitlin? Not at any point did I think Caitlin was targeted. And I'm going to stop on that word because what happened was these petty jealousy narratives that got formed. Then, when the season started and people saw people blocking Caitlin's shot or picking her up full court, it then became, oh, they're targeting.
This is where the story could have stayed. A relentless debate about physical play, rookie hazing, and the unspoken rules of professional initiation. But then, someone with unparalleled credibility and a career's worth of social capital stepped into the ring and changed the entire conversation with the precision of a surgeon. Sue Bird, one of the most respected figures in basketball history, a winner at every level, sat down on a podcast and didn't just address the rumors. She detonated them, reframing the crisis entirely. Bird strategically shifted the focus away from the players on the court and turned it squarely on the media ecosystem and a subset of fans. She dissected a now infamous post-game moment where reporter Christine Brennan asked Dejanai Carrington about the eye injury incident, probing whether the contact was intentional. Bird, with razor-sharp clarity, argued that the question itself, and more importantly the sensationalized framing of that question by major outlets like ESPN, carried a deeply troubling racial bias in its presumption. Her point was devastating. If a black athlete like Carrington is involved, a physical incident instantly becomes a controversy or a dirty play. If a white athlete were in that same spot, the story would be packaged with empathy and nuance, perhaps as a competitive mishap or heat of the moment.
What I've said led to this group of people being able to push those racist agendas, which really has been, in my opinion, the cause of all of this. And everybody from this moment on has, not everybody, but a lot of people have been operating under the assumption that these narratives, particularly the targeting narrative, is true.
Bird was calling out the double standard at the very heart of the coverage, exposing how racial lenses were distorting the view of ordinary basketball events. And with that analytical strike, Sue Bird pulled back the curtain on a real, raw nerve this entire saga had been touching, a nerve exposed by years of systemic neglect. It wasn't just about Caitlin Clark getting fouled. It was about a long-standing, simmering frustration among players of color in the WNBA who had built the league on their backs. A frustration with who gets promoted by corporate partners, who gets the benefit of the doubt from officials and commentators, who gets anointed as the savior of the sport after years of their labor.
Disagree with you on Christine Brennan's question being dickish, or she shouldn't have answered it, because it was something that was out there that everybody was talking about. And so she asked the question, and it was a great opportunity for Carrington to, on the record, say, no, I didn't do it. And that's all that happened. So I do disagree with you. I don't think it was a dickish question. I think it was a fine question based on what was going on at the moment.
Bird connected the dots to a well-documented history of racial inequity within the league that long predated Caitlin Clark's arrival, from marketing disparities to pay inequities rooted in demographic perceptions. In doing so, she introduced a much more charged concept into the mix, the idea of the white girl pass, the suggestion that Clark was benefiting from an invisible cushion of racial privilege that softened her entry and amplified her successes beyond their on-court measure. This accusation didn't stay in the shadows of subtext. It was voiced loudly and publicly by prominent stars who have carried the league for years and felt its imbalances firsthand. Angel Reese, never one to mince words, and Alyssa Thomas, the bedrock of the Connecticut Sun, essentially argued that Caitlin Clark was the WNBA's chosen one not purely because of her transcendent talent, but in part because of her race and its marketability to a broader, wider audience. They contended she was receiving preferential treatment from the league office, a bigger margin for error in the public eye, and a relentless promotional push that others of equal or greater accomplishment had been denied for years. This was the explosion beneath the surface, the culmination of quiet grievances. It was no longer just fans arguing online. It was elite players saying the quiet part out loud. That Clark's unprecedented fame felt like a symbol of a privilege they'd never had access to, a reminder that their excellence alone had never been enough to garner the same frenzy. But Sue Bird wasn't finished. She took that white privilege narrative head on and attempted to dismantle it with a nuanced perspective often lost in the shouting. In her view, Caitlin Clark was being used as a pawn, albeit a highly visible and talented one, in a much older, more complex war about systemic issues in the league. Bird fiercely defended Clark's credentials, not as a white player, but as a bona fide generational player whose skill demanded attention. The logo threes from the logo, the unprecedented viewership numbers she single-handedly drove, the viral highlights. Bird argued these were earned on the court through sheer, undeniable mastery, not handed to her by a conspiratorial league. She pushed back against the reductive idea that talking about race meant you had to tear down the individual who was, in her eyes, simply an amazing basketball phenomenon caught in a crossfire. This was the moral core of Bird's argument. Yes, talk about the league's racial inequities, but don't mistakenly direct that justified frustration to a rookie who is herself just playing the game at an exceptional level and is not responsible for the system she entered. The problem was the genie was already out of the bottle, and its effects were becoming dangerously tangible. The online vitriol, the weaponized narratives from both extreme ends, began to manifest in a way that everyone could see on their TV screens, altering the atmosphere of the games themselves. The physical play against Caitlin Clark took on a different, more charged tenor. It began to feel less like the typical tough WNBA style, a style Clark herself said she welcomed, and more, as observers and even some commentators noted, unervingly personal. It was in the extra shoves after the whistle, the intense, lingering confrontations, the glare-filled exchanges that seemed to cross from competitive fire into something more visceral and bitter. Bird herself would later imply that the racial controversy had been used as an excuse, a cover, for some players to settle personal scores or express their broader frustrations in an inappropriate way on the hardwood, using Clark as a physical proxy for their grievances with the league. The court was no longer just a court. It had become a battleground for cultural grievances, and Clark was stuck on the front line, dodging real elbows born from metaphorical arguments about equity, recognition, and respect. This entire season of chaos, this pressure cooker of racial tension, media scrutiny, and on-court hostility, could not exist without profound consequences, and those consequences were destined to land at the feet of the institution most responsible for sheltering its star. And the consequences have arrived at the door of the Indiana Fever in the most dramatic way possible, signaling a complete organizational reset. While the players were fighting the public relations war and the physical war on the court, a silent earthquake was happening in the Fever's front office, a direct response of perceived failure to navigate this unprecedented storm. In a series of stunning moves, the team reinstated a previous executive, Kelly Krauskopf, to oversee basketball operations and brought in a brand new general manager, Lynn Dunn, to chart a new course. This is a kind of top-level shakeup that screams one thing: organizational failure to protect a franchise asset and to foster a functional team culture during a cyclone. But the biggest bomb is still ticking, its fuse lit by the season's turmoil. Multiple sources now confirm that this new regime did not come in to maintain the status quo or offer patience. Their first major move, a clear signal of their mandate for change. They are planning to dismiss head coach Christy Sides this very offseason, judging her stewardship during this tumultuous period as insufficient. Let that sink in fully. After a year where her rookie star was at the center of a national maelstrom that extended far beyond X's and O's, the coach is not getting a chance to build on it or to show growth in a, hopefully, less chaotic second year. She's being let go, a sacrificial lamb to the gods of instability and underperformance. This isn't just a simple coaching change. It's a stark admission that the environment surrounding this team became unmanageable, and that a new, more powerful voice is needed in the locker room to protect and maximize the asset that is Caitlin Clark, while also commanding the respect of the entire roster. Friends of Clark's on the roster will be gone, traded to reshape the chemistry. The system she played in will be scrapped for one that better optimizes her otherworldly talents. The The Fever are not tweaking around the edges. They're initiating a full-scale rebuild of culture and hierarchy, this time with the explicit mission of constructing everything around their once-in-a-lifetime talent and insulating her from the external noise that defined her rookie year. So what does the future truly hold for a franchise that has willingly stepped into the volcano? The 2025 Indiana Fever will be a completely different Eddie, from top to bottom, a grand experiment in accelerated team building. A new coach with likely a stronger defensive pedigree or veteran credibility, a new offensive system tailored to Clark's passing genius, and likely a new supporting cast of veterans specifically chosen for their professionalism and fit all designed with one singular, public goal: climb from the middle of the pack into the top tier of the league and become a perennial playoff threat. The potential, if they get it right, is terrifying for other teams who enjoy targeting a disorganized unit. A fully acclimated Caitlin Clark, with a year of the league's toughest lessons, both physical and psychological, under her belt, now placed in a stable system built to her strengths and manned by players who complement her. The scoring and assist record she flirted with as a rookie could seem quaint compared to what a refined, supported version might achieve. But the larger question for the WNBA as a whole remains unanswered and perhaps even magnified. Have Sue Bird's brutal truths led to any real reconciliation or systemic action? Or has this painful season simply exposed the fractures for all to see, leaving them to simmer until the next time a player becomes a symbolic lightning rod for a pain they didn't create? The Fever are changing drastically to survive this new reality. The question is, will the rest of the league do the deeper, harder work to actually heal? This saga was more than a sports story about a talented rookie. It was a reflection of everything happening outside the arena. Our racial reckonings, our media fragmentation, our toxic online discourse, forced on the parquet floor and played out through the bodies of athletes. If you made it to the end, you know this is a conversation that's just beginning, with the Fever's extreme makeover being the first major domino to fall. Let me know in the comments below. Do you think the Fever's drastic changes are the right move to unlock a dynasty, or a panic overreaction that ignores deeper issues? And hit that like button if this deep dive into the real story behind the headlines surprised you with its complexity. It's the best way to support this channel, and make sure you don't miss the next chapter when it drops, as we'll be tracking every step of this franchise-altering offseason. Thanks for watching.